So you find us still in the second hour of the show, this being the Power Zone, or the Tuesday installment of the show. I'm glad that you're still here with us. I want us to shift our focus to Tembisa. If you're a resident of Tembisa, you were out and about in the day that was, do call in, give us a sense of why you decided to take to the streets in the day that was. But we're told here that residents of Tembisa just taking to the streets, community members blocking streets with stones, burning tires, large boulders, because of this electricity surcharge. But Lindiwe will really give us a sense of how we found ourselves here and really what could be the way forward, looking at the fact that we saw even the mayor coming out to try calm those that were protesting there in the city of Ekurhuleni. You at home, you find us on 0861987000. On X, we go by at PowerFM 987. Lindiwe, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Katlego. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for giving us your time. Maybe you help us make sense of what, played itself out there in Tembisa. And I was saying that the night before, I had, received all of these voice notes at night to say that there is something brewing there in Tembisa, but I was not, really, really confident enough to put it out there. Little did I know that we'll wake up to Tembisa just being alive to this demonstration that is full blown. Do give us a sense of what happened there. How did we find ourselves with that demonstration in the day that was?
Sure, Katlego, you are so right. I think none of us really thought it would transpire this way. But residents of Tembisa really went out into the streets after they expressed their dissatisfaction on how this tariff has been affecting them. And with that being said, we looked at how even the mayor came out to actually address what was happening in the community, because the community really mentioned that they are really not happy about the 126th tariff hike that was really happening. And we find ourselves in a sense that this is not the first time where we find Tembisa having to go out into the streets, having to fight about electricity prices that are going up. We can remember in 2022 in July, we're still faced with the same problem. And this just shows that Tembisa is one of those township that really comes out and speaks for itself, because we find ourselves in a country where this spike hike is really affecting us. Even with the inflation rate that is coming up, this was really a huge deal, because as NESA really approved 11.32%, but then we look at how the city of Ekurhuleni then put a different hike to that, making it a very impossible implementation of the 12%, continuing over a decade with the trend of electricity costs and pacing out inflation.
Yeah, I mean, really, when you look at it, you hear the residents saying that it's something that would be unsustainable for them. Already, the price of electricity is high, and most of them, you would really hear them saying that the levies, they don't come through, they don't bode well with how then you look at the socioeconomic challenges that are experienced and faced by those that are living in townships and trying by all means to make means. Looking at all of these developments here, is this the sentiment that you're picking up as well, that really when you look at it, the affordability is at the crux of where we find ourselves here, that most of them then would have wanted for the city to go about it differently, and that there should have been somewhat of consultation before this is passed. We're finding ourselves in a similar situation like what we saw play itself out here in the city of Johannesburg.
Very true, Katlego. I think also looking back to what happened last year, when the backlash from AfriForum was mentioned regarding municipal prices hikes in 2024-2025 financial year, when NASA warned against municipalities late April this year, where they said they must submit their cost price of study. And with what we have noticed is that residents in Ekurhuleni were the second hardest hit from this, where the metro implemented 13.40 price hike for the 2025-2026 financial year, meaning residents will more or less pay over 330 per month as per the ESCOM average monthly household consumption. And this really does show that when you're coming from a city that is full of unemployment or even poverty strikes, we are looking at people who are living below the poverty line. And when you increase such prices for electricity, then we're looking at as to how do then communities then have to deal with the inflation rates. And even with, despite municipalities requesting a higher retail increase, NESA really capped the tariffs in most cases, citing the need to address critical issues that include financial controls, high energy losses, and inefficiency in municipal operations. So this really does show that there's been a plug in local authorities contributing to SA's economic distribution on energy.
Yeah, no, that is something else, because it does then speak to the challenges that people face on the ground, and maybe let's go into that, because when you look at it, a lot of people were asking themselves to say, when do these people then go to work? How do they get to plan and coordinate so, prudently so? When you look at how the roads were barricaded, main roads, it was well organized. And another person said on X that no, these would be people that don't have jobs. You know what I mean? It speaks to the day-to-day challenges that people are experiencing on the ground. And, tensions really boiled, because it's the reality for them that they find themselves really in the back end where this economy is concerned, and they had no choice but to take it to the streets, because in any way, when you look at it, there are no opportunities that would play themselves out, and you find a lot of people frustrated by these socioeconomic challenges.
Most definitely, Katlego. When you look at how this was very orchestrated, the strike started out around 5 a.m. in the morning. And when you look at how everything transpired, I even have a colleague who is from Tembisa also, who couldn't make it to work because of how everything transpired, with how everything was burning, just everyone just taking it out to the streets with their frustrations. Because as you live in a country where electricity is now becoming a luxury, and even the electricity minister, Jose Ekurhuleni, even said that nowadays our electricity is unsustainable, which drives many households into energy poverty. And when you look at such effects from inflation and everything else, it really does affect communities, and they really had to voice out their frustrations out to the streets, because this has been ongoing. Even in 2022, as I've mentioned, that this has been an ongoing issue where South Africans are really facing such issues with electricity, and the high rate really does not help us. It really doesn't.
Just a reminder to our listeners at home that we're in conversation this morning with Lindiwe Rasemetsa, who's joining us just to help us make sense of these demonstrations that we saw play itself out in Tembisa, and the residents really not happy with the issues around the surcharge, and most of them just calling for a change, and hence they took to the streets here just to try put pressure on the powers that be for the reversal of this. And when you look at it, then Lindiwe, one would say somewhat they did manage to win something out of the demonstrations here, because we even saw this catching the attention of the mayor, Dr. Xhakaza. He was on the ground.
Yes, he was. He came out to address the angry residents and how it affected them. And he really made headlines with him having that media briefing. And what that came out is that he temporarily suspended the Tembisa electricity hike, because then he also mentioned that he is also in communication with NESA, and within 14 days, then there should be an outcome from this conversation that they have been having.
So do you think that, what he promised then would be something that is sustainable? Because this would be a resolution that comes from council. Hence, you see it now even having gained traction, and people saying that some of these issues are far advanced already than for him to come through and reverse it. So is this something that Lindiwe, you see him take him back to council to say that my people are not happy. He's the number one, there in Ekurhuleni. Do you see him winning to try convince the others, or it does then look like it's still going to be somewhat of a task because of the fact that it's a multi-party kind of a situation that plays itself out there, and you won't then in any way just make that decision willy-nilly? Do you maybe know what the promises were, what he told the residents that he would do? Because what we see is that he's just talking about having stopped it. But does this become somewhat of a permanent stoppage, or it's something that he'll still need to take to council and then they try break it down? And yeah, it's really a cause for concern. What did he say?
So in one of the things that he touched on is that obviously to temporarily suspend this tariff, but this is something that needs to go back to council, because it is not one of the things that he can take a decision on himself, because this includes NESA. It also includes a special committee that will have to discuss this, and he has expressed that yes, he acknowledges that the residences are not really happy about what is happening, but it is quite important to go back to the drawing board to actually discuss this with fellow leaders into this. As you have said, this is a multi-party thing. It is not just one person who can make a decision on this. And Nkosindiphile really promised people, but I feel like some of those promises that he made are really unrealistic. And this is something that he really needs to go back and think about. And he was really, on my side, personally, I think that he was making the situation really worse, because as I was listening to that media briefing, as a resident, I'm like, I don't think you will be able to tackle all of those things that he has mentioned.
And yeah, let's hear from the residents, right? The lines are open. You find us live on 0861 987 000. If you're there in Tembisa, maybe just give us a sense of how you received some of these developments and how then you're looking at ensuring that you navigate this one, looking at the fact that we do find ourselves here and the residents did take to the streets yesterday. If you are a resident there, do you get a sense as well that this was the last of it, or it's just somewhat of a pause so as to see how then, people then organize themselves going forward? How do we actually then find and see all of these developments playing themselves out, looking at where we find ourselves? Let's hear from you as a resident of Tembisa on 0861 987 000. You also find us there on X. We go by at Power FM 987, at Katlego Legodi _ Lindiwe, do you get a sense that this becomes the end of it, as per the residents, or they can still try organize somewhat, in terms of the messaging? Was it, saying to the residents that, since the intervention of the mayor, then this does say that it becomes the end of it?
I don't think so, Katlego. I think the residents are still waiting to see how this is going to unfold. And as I was speaking to one of the residents in Tembisa, he also mentioned that even parents are even scared to take their kids to school, and some of them are really trying to make sure that everyone is safe with everything that is transpiring, because there has been altercations between residences as well as the SAPS, as well as the JMPD. So therefore, I don't think this is going to end anytime soon, and this is a developing story that everyone is really looking forward to, and all the other developments that come through from this.
And is it just only the issue of electricity there, or you in the mix you do get a sense that there are other also issues of service delivery that saw people reaching boiling point? The issue of water, I know here in Johannesburg, water has become somewhat of a commodity now. A lot of people, you'd find them frustrated by the how water tend to move, and we see all of these issues of fixing and rehabilitating infrastructure, maintenance that tend to then take away in terms of the water. Do you get a sense that problems are many there, that this was just somewhat of of an outlet for them to take to the streets to just raise their dissatisfaction?
I totally agree with you, Katlego. I feel like in Ekurhuleni, in its entirety, these are some of the issues that we have been facing also with the city of Johannesburg. service delivery is one of those things that municipalities are really failing our residences with high unemployment, with everything that is going on in our different municipalities. These are some of the things that come out in when you interview people on the ground. You can hear that this is more than just electricity, but it's more on basic service delivery and how our municipal leaders are really failing our people in terms of that.
Yeah, let's go to Tembisa. That's where we find Kwasa this morning, who'll just give us a sense of, as a resident of Tembisa, how his, or more or less how his observations have been in terms of developments over time, and maybe we'll try and get a sense of why the residents decided to take to the streets. Kwasa, good morning. Welcome to the show.
How are you, sir?
I'm okay. How are you, Dad?
We missed you, but at least when you drove your car like a mastermind. Let me just get to the story.
Yes, sir.
You see, Mr. K, you may blame residents of Tembisa, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm living with an elderly, a pensioner. I'm not working. I see every time whenever she buys electricity for 100 rand, you only get 45 units. Yeah, that's the reality. And then when you go to the Pakistani shop to buy that electricity, you pay 10 rand more. And that electricity, it doesn't last,
Sure.
Yeah.
So the problems are many. So the surcharge, this 126 rand surcharge, it was going to add to the problems that are already there on the ground in Tatekwas.
Of course, because, I believe that her money, her pension money, it all goes to the electricity. She buys about 6 times a month electricity. Yeah. And she doesn't have your luxury, swimming pool, whatever. She's only using a kettle and a stove. But the charges, they're exorbitant. It's unfair. That's all I can say. Yeah.
So are you supportive then of the the move by the mayor to pause this, and what are you hoping for going forward then? Because you're there, this is your lived reality. What are the residents of Tembisa hoping for, looking at this intervention by the mayor earlier on?
May they just please think about those who are unemployed and do something and stop the lip service. Talk is cheap. Can't they just act and do things better for those who are unemployed and the elderly? It's all I'm asking for. Thank you, Katlego.
But also, whilst you're still on this issue of electricity for the elderly, don't the elderly have somewhat of a reprieve that they get from the municipality? Isn't there a rebate for the elderly whereby you're not treated the very same as I'm treated, that you would at least get the municipality giving, I think they call it free electricity or something along those lines? That has not worked in Tshwane. I mean, in Ekurhuleni.
They do get, but it's only 20 units. Yeah, only 20 units every first day of the month. So you can imagine what are we facing in Tembisa. So sometimes you may blame people, but it's totally unfair.
Yeah, no, it is truly unfair. Thank you very much for giving us your call this morning.
Sure, Mr. K.
Appreciate it. Kwasa calling us there from Tembisa, just talking about these strike action. He's saying it's unfair. It's really unfair. He's saying that 100 rand doesn't give you much in terms of the units. And imagine navigating all of this as an elderly, someone that would really find themselves in the receiving end here, because you're not getting much, or a pensioner, you're not getting that much for you to be moving around in this particular manner. I'm hoping that, indeed then we see the powers that be, the councillors, coming through to push and represent the residents here. Were they there on the ground, the councillors, with the mayor? Do you get a sense that they understand the severity and the mammoth of a challenge that the residents are experiencing under their guide, because they are more or less below the mayor? They work with the mayor, they're part of the mayoral committee, most of them. Do you reckon that they would be working to solve for the residents? What are they saying? Indu.
Oh, thank you, Katlego. No, I with what you have just mentioned, I don't think there's really much coming out from this, because when you look at Eskom's direct customers, there's an increase of an average of 12.74%. And when you look at the long-term trend of this, is that there's been a substantial increase of electricity over the years. And looking at since 1994 or 2014, actually, there has been 190% increase. And what we can expect is that there is a further increase, with projections between 5.36% in 2026. And you actually look at it in a sense that if councillors aren't aware of the impact or the long-term impact that it has and what it puts on households as well as businesses, it really contributes to the push of inflation, as businesses will then start to increase costs to customers, which really makes it more that people living under the poverty line are getting more poor. And also, you have to contribute even more on electricity rather than to look at other needs, such as your basic needs, as well as healthcare issues that may come up from all of this.
Yeah, and I just wanted to wrap it up with you here, Lindiwe, by looking at where we find ourselves. I mean, we're going into the local government elections, and a lot of people would say that what is happening in the townships would be at the heart of where you would get the support, and how then these upcoming elections, or what they speak to, looking at the politics of the day. Do you get a sense that, most of the residents, their thinking is along that, to say that we need to then, in any way going forward, see somewhat of change coming through, and then they would pin their hopes on the elections, to say that maybe the elections would help us in terms of turning things around?
You're right, Katlego. I think also with what we have noticed with the past elections is that South Africans were really tired of how the ANC was really handling municipal issues. And this is where we went into a GNU. And when we look at such events that are happening on ground, people are obviously looking into elections to say, this is what's been happening, and how can we then navigate the new structure of having to cast our votes with basic services not being provided to us? How do we then navigate what is happening, and then try to ensure that we hold our leaders accountable for the promises that they've made? Because they make a lot of promises when trying to get into elections and trying to get residents to really vote for them and all of that. But then it all boils down to accountability issues that really come after, with them putting them in leadership.
Yeah, no, that is something to chew on, to think about, really going into the local government elections, because they are at the heart of some of these issues that residents would experience over time. And I'm hoping, I heard someone say that there's another meeting of some sort in Tembisa on Thursday. I'm just hoping that, as all of these things play themselves out, the powers that be are aware of the implications of an even bigger of a demonstration compared to where we found ourselves in the day that was. But I'm hoping as well that, the surcharge would become something that is, it's reversed, so that residents would find themselves being able to really navigate this economy, because you get a sense that most of them, these socioeconomic challenges that are playing themselves out, they're robbing them of the opportunity of realizing their full potential within the economy, coupled with a lot of other things, unemployment and but I'm hoping that indeed then, as we saw them take take to the streets united to reject this surcharge, we would see them also unite in other measures to ensure that they turn things around there within Tembisa. But Lindiwe, really appreciate you coming through and giving us your time. How do we follow your work, Lindiwe?
People can follow me on X, it's at Ms. Kamo, as well as on Instagram, it's at Ms. Kamo.
Awesome. Ms. Kamo, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Katlego, for having me.
Appreciate it. Yeah, have yourself a beautiful day as well.
You too. Thank you.
Awesome. Lindiwe Rasimeta coming through here as a freelance journalist, helping us make sense of these developments that played themselves out in Tembisa. Tembisa was a hive of activity in the day that was. So these tensions that escalated from the introduction of this surcharge. And we see since seeing the mayor, Dr. Nkosindiphile Xhakaza, saying here that he's going to be putting this on a pause for now. All of these matters will have to go back to council so that if there is then this dissatisfaction, they work around it, right? They try find a way around it in terms of ensuring that at least then we don't see similar demonstrations that will stop productivity. Literally, Tembisa was at a standstill in the day that was due to this demonstration. I want us to break a bit. We'll go into the last hour of the show. I told you that we have Mudiwa Gavaza who'll be joining us. Mudiwa Gavaza is coming through just to help us make sense of all of these developments in the tech space.